have a steel cable connected to the roof of the White Dragon, and the chainsaw came in and chopped the cow right out. And then for other shots, we put it back in, so it was here and there and there. But in any event, it's the angle that he wanted, and it's your job. Figure it out. So that's why you have the great angle on Harrison Ford getting his food. Otherwise, it would have been this side or that side of the cup. Completely understood. And they were willing to wait, because everything is money and time. And so I'll say, I'll do anything you want me to do within reason. And it's going to take some time. And Michael Deere would come along and say, take your time. So that's why you see all that texture. That's why you see it the way it is, because we were given the opportunity, well, not always, and the time reserved to do that. And that's why that shot looks like it does.
Yeah, and so the next time you see the film, just think of a big construction crane actually holding it so it doesn't fall on Harrison Ford's head.
I said, it's going to fall down. He said, fix it.
Yeah, what you just said, you figure it out. Ridley said that a lot. We can't do it this way. We figure it out. Boom, you go off.
No, that's true. And I would ask him, I said, okay, we're going to change here. What do you want me to do? He said, you're the art director. Figure it out. Go back to the camera.
Eddie Olmos, of course, is Gaff, and City Speak, which was kind of in the script, that mishmash of different languages. Eddie actually came up with the substance of that. He went to the Berlin School of Languages in downtown LA and studied like 4 or 5 different languages. And for those of you who are really into it, when he's saying lofa, that's horse dick in Hungarian. Anyway, so of course he takes them into, across that beautiful cityscape, and we see the other ones like the lobster spinner and the Ferrari spinner and all these different models. And there's Tom, it's not Tom Pock, Bill George. Yeah, Bill George, thank you. That's Bill George from the model shop starting the hero model. Hero model is a prop, of course, that is closest to the camera, the one that really works, and then the ones that are kind of like the stand-in props or the rubber props, like guns, like blasters. There were a lot of rubber blasters, but really only 1 or 2 heroes. Gene Winfield, this is while they were making the full-scale spinner back in 1981, so this is like over 40 years old. And there I am again, gosh. This is Gene Winfield restoring the spinner, and Charlie is going to show up later with this.
Oh, I'm going to have a picture in this?
You got a picture in
wow.
this. But they restored that spinner, and here, of course, they're landing in Union Station with Emmett Walsh, Ian Walsh, great guy. Joe Turkel, who also just unfortunately passed. And, in the book, I talked about how Joe, in the first edition, how he needed to use cue cards because he couldn't remember the dialogue. Also in the first edition, I wasn't able to find Joe Turkel because he had retired and he didn't have an agent anymore, and he had just vanished. And I found over 100-some people. And Joe couldn't believe for years that I couldn't find him. He was very angry with me. And so we finally kind of made up. And I said, Joe, really, you got to talk about the character. So in the last edition of the book, he does. And you know why he was having trouble having dialogue? He had his mother and his father living in the apartment that he lived in, who had just moved in with him during Blade Runner. And apparently, and he talks about this in the book, they had a very troubled relationship when he was a kid. And he was under all this psychological pressure. And he said he never blew, to me, he said he never blew as many lines of dialogue as he did on Blade Runner, because his past was haunting him every time he came to the set. But on a lighter note, he said that Ridley told him, he said, you can do whatever you want with this character. I'm not going to tell you how to play it. Joe said, this guy is both a megalomaniac, we're talking about Tyrell, both a megalomaniac and very weird. And so I'm going to play him as someone who is like so egotistical, he thinks he's the smartest man on the planet. And when Deckard first comes to VK Rachel, what he said, I walked out on the set thinking was, I made this woman. I literally created this woman. And who's this policeman who's coming in to talk to my woman? And he said that started the wheels turning. And he said from then on, he said he always had a smirk. And I thought that was an interesting way to play it. And here, of course, is Rachel. Sean was here earlier. Has anyone seen her at the con? She was here like Thursday for a while. Yeah. Anyway, and there's the VK machine designed by Sid. And remember the replica iglo. Here's how they did it, one of the ways. There's the mirror mounts that they did during production. And this is the sketches originally. Here's the scene that was cut from the original, which is the Cairo. This is where Holden is still alive, and he's in a sarcophagus. And Decker goes to get some clues from him. Then we're introduced, of course, to Rutger on the Chinatown set, which was a beautiful, beautiful set. And lots of neon on that, too. Charlie, when you were going back to the final cut, there was a lot of, did you have to do color grading and color correcting and all that? Because there's so much neon and so many different, like, for instance, in Sebastian's workshop, there was that pink glow and all that. Could you talk about, a little bit about, like, what you had to do to bring things back to where they were or what they were originally?
Yeah, well, the thing is, Ridley never really had an official final pass on the color of the film, like all these years. And even with the 92 director's cut, which I know Paul would like to call the so-called director's cut, because he really was not super involved in that. But in 2006 and 7, when we were working on the final cut, he finally did get pretty much everything he wanted. He got the cut that he wanted, he got the sound mix, and the color. We spent a lot of time on the color. And one funny little story, which I've never told before, is the opening Hades landscape scene. Ridley was making American Gangster around that time, and he was in very desaturated mode. And Blade Runner is a very saturated movie in terms of color. He almost made it black and white, except for the fireballs. The fireballs he kept blazing orange, like just like fire.
He took all the color?
He put it pretty much. It looked like Sin City. It was like very strange.
Interesting.
And I remember texting Paul Frischman, like, he's ruining the movie. I was freaking out. But fortunately, it came back around, and it was, back to closer to normal. But the final cut represents his final pass in color, for sure.
Yeah, for many years, having been fortunate enough to see what they called the work print, which was the sneak preview prints that they had in Denver, Dallas in 1992. That was my favorite version of the movie, and that's different from the final cut. But the work print is the one that really, in a lot of ways, is the closest to the final cut. But now, after seeing virtually all of these cuts we talked about, plus there's 2 or 3 I didn't even put in the book, I am 100% behind the final cut. The final cut is the definitive thing, okay? I know some people love the theatrical version with the voiceover. Now, there's a funny story you can say, because do you remember what happened in 2005 when Ridley said, I'll get an A-list writer to go with Harrison Ford? Yeah, tell that story.
No, Ridley thought that he could fix the narration with more narration, or new narration, and bring Harrison back. And I think, again, with the censored version, I believe Harrison said, no effing way. But they were friendly at that point. It's like they had a bit of tension making the film, but they were friendly at that point, and it was just more of a joke. Like, I'm not doing this in a way, because I think Harrison, was against it from day one in terms of narration. I have to say though, I want, and you will debunk this myth with me. Harrison did not deliberately sabotage the voiceover. He showed up to work. He showed up to do the best job he could. He says that in Dangerous Days, and I've heard all of his voiceover, like the raw recordings of the voiceover. He's trying like hell to make it work. So there's none of this like, he phoned it in and he made it intentionally, flat. He really tried to make it work.
Yeah, and again, I was around when that was happening, and Katie Haber and Michael Daly and Roland Kibbe, who was the writer for the final narration that you hear in the theatrical cut, were all in like this little soundstage together in a recording booth. And Harrison did not, he just kept trying to do, and he told me, he said, well, how can I put this nicely? Harrison told me, he says, well, if you have to say shit, it's going to sound like shit. That was the nice version. But yeah, the writing on it was very poor, and it just got worse and worse and worse, And so really, let's lay that myth to rest. Please go online. Harrison Ford did not intentionally blow the narration on theatrical cut. He tried. He just had to work with what he had. Okay, James Hong, who was just in Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Who all saw that? Yeah. with all due respect to Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, Everything Everywhere All at Once is my favorite multiverse movie. Oh, who's that guy? Jim Long. Oh, yeah, okay, never mind. I've always loved this shot of Pris because it's so wonderful. It's like a living doll with a real doll, right? It's really an interesting shot. And Pris was, so that, of course, Daryl Hannah was like, what, 19, 20 when she did something like that? Yeah. Oh, and Rutger was her protector. Rutger took her under his wing. And not in a provocative sense, but he was actually very, avuncular towards her, very protective. And William Sanderson was a lot of fun. He's an eccentric, shy, gentle guy, but a nice man and also very, very, very talented. But Marvin Westmore did this makeup to age him, and it took hours. And here's some iconic shots. Oh, here's the Sebastian's workshop, behind the scenes. And oh, there was a miniature, I've said this in the book, but there was actually a miniature landscape in that. A 3D, when Pris looks in, there's actually like little tiny people moving around and trees and all this, like a mechanical type of thing. And they were supposed to do an insert, but they never did it. And here's Kevin Hall as the Kaiser. And there's Marvin Westmore making him up behind the scenes. There they are, the bear and the Kaiser with their heads off, John Edward Allen and Kevin. And of course, there's the famous unicorn scene coming up when he has the daydream. And there's the real shot that Charlie found, because in the director's cut, when they reinserted it, they used this one, which was not the original shot that they put in the original workprint. Or actually, it wasn't in the workprint, the one that they had that no one ever saw, except me and a few other people. And Charlie, do you want to talk about that story, finding that? You had to find that footage.
Yeah, we had really rough, beat-up work print of that scene and other deleted scenes and other lost footage, but we didn't have access to negative, which we would have needed to really make it clean and super high resolution. So finally, after the deal was made between Warner Brothers and the Blade Runner partnership, which was Bud York and Jerry Perenchio, we got access to everything that still existed, and then we were able to better restore that to the original cut of the unicorn scene, because in the director's cut, it's an outtake. We found the original scene that Terry Rawlings edited together, which has
this one's the original.
Yeah, which and there's even more before that of the unicorn just kind of like wandering into the shot and running. But we found endless amounts of footage of the unicorn being filmed with the slate that says Blade Runner on it, not Legend. It says Blade Runner. It was filmed for Blade Runner, so another myth to kill. But we found so much unicorn footage, and strangely, there was a lot of footage of the horses trying to mount each other. And there was so much of it, we called it uniporn. It was crazy. And then we also had to fix in the final cut, the unicorn's horn was kind of a little wobbly, so we stabilized that in the final cut.
Well, Charlie, you just made the internet ablaze with unicorn.
Yeah. Hashtag unicorn.
Hashtag unicorn. Okay, and of course, here's Deckard's apartment. These chairs, by the way, the art department was on the scavenging hunt, and they found a disco where they were throwing the furniture out. And this was actually in the alley, and they said, "Can we have these?" And they said, "Yeah," and they brought them to the set. So this is like used 10 minutes. Come on now, wait a minute. You got, I don't know, geez.
They've seen the movie.
I didn't see that. All right. Anyway, disco stuff. This is the photo. This is when you recreated it for the final cut. We put in
Brought
Joanna Cassidy instead of the stand-in they had. Anna Moyd Rose, stuff that got cut out and now back in the final cut. Joanna Cassidy is Zora, and here she is with her own snake, which was Darling, a Burmese python. And here's a really good shot. This is not usually seen. This is just before they shot it. And that's, do you want to say this, David? This is...
Yes, it's called Last Looks, when the makeup department and the set decorator and the prop person scurry around trying to get everything as perfect as they can, because we just keep working until they throw us out, because the art department is notorious for wanting to not ever give up the set until the AD comes in and says, "Okay, get out of here, you're done." So Linda DeSena, who is not with us at this moment, four-time Academy Award nominated set decorator and production designer on her own. And I have to give a lot of credit because we build the sets, and of course, we all know what construction is like. But if you looked at a real estate catalog and you saw a house for sale and empty rooms, well, basically, everything that you actually see on the final layer comes from the set decoration. And so she gets as much credit as all of us. And of course, when we were nominated, she was also considered as a nominee for Best Art Direction.
And you and she and who else are going to be doing a screening of Blade Runner up in LA on Tuesday?
Mark Stetson, who was the model supervisor on that film, and myself and Linda are going to run the film at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences new museum. We've been invited, so on Tuesday we're going to be there, and this is a rehearsal.
Okay, look, I want to get to the Q&A, so here we go. Here goes shot. Oh,
Hey, who's that?
This is Charlie's only picture today.
I know, no, I was stopping there. There! Ta-da! Thank you for stopping my too rapidly punching finger there. Yep, and then costumes, top Southwell stuff. We're getting to your Q&As, folks. Oh, squish. Oh, I don't want to be killed in this picture. Please let me have an extra shot. No. Oh, Rucker didn't want to do the shot. He thought it was silly. Really convinced him. He said, it'll work, and it did. The rolling set outside. Oh, Matthew Urich doing the matte paintings, who was assisted by Robert Joffrey. This was done at the last second. David put those things, the fans there literally just before the shot. Matte painting, yes, like, okay, we'll grab you. Oh, look, we're hanging by the side of the building. Here we are.
You should have been doing this right from the beginning.
I'm getting there. Harrison goofing, and of course the wonderful Tears and Rain speech, which Rutger partially improvised. Charlie was supervised for the final cut, the replacement of the original background, which was nice. Very
Worst shot in the original movie.
Yeah, it was, yeah. And then, Eddie Olmos's dialogue originally here was, you've done a man's work, sir, but it's getting hard to tell who's a man around here. And they thought,
it was this. It was like, are you sure you really are a man? It's tough to tell who's who around.
yeah, it's hard to tell who's a man around here. And then, of course, Saving Rachel, let's go. Oh, great story here. Right after he finds this, I was there on the set, and there was a constant tension between Ridley and Harrison about him being a replicant. Harrison never wanted to be a replicant. Ridley kind of wanted him to be, and said, okay, well, we'll make him not, but he was secretly going and making him a replicant. And when they got to this shot, Harrison actually crumbled a unicorn and said, God damn it, you're still trying to make me a replicant, aren't you? Anyway, the unicorn Vangelis, surrounded by his banks of investments. Carrying bootlegs of the Blade Runner soundtrack, the official Blade Runner, City Speak, the first fanzine that came out, and the immemorial Criterion Collection, some books that have been done on Ridley, and let's just keep reading about future noir and Blade Runner. And here are the two men most responsible for it: Ridley Scott and Philip K. Dick. And there we go. All right, come on, let's go.